What's up, guys? Nolan here. A reminder at the beginning of the video here, this is not the main channel, this is the second channel. So if you like any of this video, any part of this video, or any part of any of my previous videos on this channel, please guys, sub, like, comment. That is very important for having this be successful over here on this new channel. It's free and helps me out a lot, so thank you very much, guys. And on the other end of this, if you do end up commenting, you got a question or anything like that, it might end up in a video, as today that is what we were doing. As yesterday with the striker reveal video, Cedar9239, which at least I hope that's how you're pronouncing that, that's how you spell Cedar, so hopefully that is your name there, Cedar, requested that I play the demo, which I do have access to. I actually saw some of the comments of saying, you don't have access to the demo? Guys, they gave it out to like everybody. It wasn't even Slytherin, it was some third party. So pretty much everybody has access to this if you've got a channel that covers Broken Arrow in some capacity. And every single one of us, including the devs, have shown it off multiple times on this easy difficulty. So it's the easy difficulty. It is, especially for somebody with as much access to the game as I have, or as much time in the game as me, it was like quite literally just rolling down the road. It was not difficult whatsoever. But what I did do is in the tutorial, the devs hid some stuff, including some foreign units. So in either tomorrow's video or the day after, at some point in the future, we'll take a look at those. And if you guys are on my Discord, link below, I've actually shared those already. So you can go take a look. There was Delta Force, and there was some foreign units with some foreign vehicles and things like that. Interesting talking points on that end of things, and that's from the tutorial. But when it comes to the actual mission, it was almost quite literally like, you know, just driving down the road for me, making sure you set up your units correctly to cover each other. If one gets hurt, you pull it back. You don't just let it die. Didn't even need to worry about air. It was most certainly on the easiest difficulty. But because Cedar asked, I went ahead and put that up. Also, what I will try to do in today, or for today's video, is to answer as many comments as I can. So starting with yesterday's video, as we did have that reveal of the Striker Brigade, we'll get started here, and I will try to answer as many as possible. We got Lefty Boy here saying that this is the weirdest promotion I've ever seen. Anybody that's not aware, I do have a main channel which covers games like Escape from Tarkov and extraction shooters and things like that. Became very popular over the COVID lockdowns and things like that. It's for Tarkov fans, it's for extraction shooter fans, things like that. Most of which are not interested in Broken Arrow, so that is why I'm not posting over on that channel. This is my second channel where I am going to be posting about other games that I'm interested in whenever there is something that I'm interested in covering when it comes to Escape from Tarkov, or when it comes to Gray Zone, which is going to have some news coming up. If you guys know about Gray Zone Warfare, that'll be over there. Beautiful Light, Marathon, things like that. That's going to be over on the main channel, while if it's like an RTS game or potentially even an MMO or something like that, it's going to be over here. And then if you don't know, I've actually got a third channel, which is based on Star Citizen, which I'm very big in, and I post over there occasionally as well. So if you guys are interested in RTS games, if you've liked any of these videos, again, please go ahead and hit that. I've done enough plugs on that one, but it is quite literally answering what I'm doing here. It's from a comment. So, and also, again, with the second reply there, that makes sense because it's to the pinned comment there. It's why isn't this on your main channel? So that's your answer there. Orange Luigi. This is possibly my favorite from Priesty Boy. This is going to take some getting used to. Priesty Boy from yesterday says, this is probably my favorite specialization. Don't know why, but every time I see a striker in a game, movie, video, or IRL, I get so excited for Broken Arrow. These will probably be part of my decks. This does look like a very strong deck when you actually take into account its full capabilities. Like I mentioned at the end of yesterday's video, it is possible that this would be one of the strongest decks because of the F-16s, because of the speed, and because of the deadliness of those strikers. Sure, they won't be able to take a hit, but they will be able to pack a punch, and those bookers are going to be able to help with the 50mm cannon. I'm very interested to see what that can dish out against Russian armor. Not to mention, every single one of these love to have APS. They love to have javelins, where Russia's ground game is so strong. Literally, armor-wise, those javelins love to eat those up. So even against APS, because the javelins are top attack, most don't get taken out by APS. So very strong deck here. We'll have to see what that ends up looking like. And not to mention, even we've got the AA, we've got the Pack 3s, something that the US decks really needed. So super excited to be able to try that spec out. And it looks like, because they haven't announced another test, it's possible that we might get it at release. So it's going to be interesting kind of soup to figure out between when we get our presumably Special Forces deck, which I guess somebody's probably going to comment about here, so we'll talk a bit more about that in a second, and this Striker deck along with the Marine, Airborne, and Armored that we've already seen for the US. can't wait to see the Special Forces spec from Raider 1942. Yeah, absolutely. So that Special Forces deck is going to be a video on its own, and that's going to be coming up soon. So stay tuned for that, because there's a lot of units that we have yet to see in a actual spec yet, but we have seen from like the Patreon and things like that. So video soon TM on that one. IRL, the Hydra 70, the rocket the APKWS kit is applied to, has a proximity fuse used for air targets, and Random American 783 goes into that a little bit. So basically, TLDR there, because he put a paragraph down here answering my point from yesterday's video where I was saying that the APKWS on those Striker SHORADs may or may not be able to intercept or be able to take down aerial targets. It seems like it should. If they're going to put it on a anti-air package like they did, it seems like, according to Random American, and I have to agree with them, that it should be able to engage those aerial targets, which would be really cool, because those in particular should be able to aim and fire relatively quickly, which is something that can run into an issue when you're fighting Russian helicopters, or really any helicopters in general, but specifically the Russian helicopters. They have those longer range heavy rockets, which can engage very quickly. When you guys see me do my helicopter rushes, you'll notice that I don't have any ATGMs on anything other than the Elmers on the Mi-28s, because what you can do is you can get a bunch of the heavily armored, making them cheaper when you don't take as many munitions, you don't take the more expensive stuff. Russian helicopters, put them across the lines first, have some Elmers in the back, have some rockets in the back, or hell, even have rockets and the S-10s and the S-30s that you can get on those helicopters and still have them pretty cheap. And as long as you spot something, which you're going to do with those exceptional optics, or even just the very good optics that you get with all those helicopters, just have them over the front line. You're going to spot those things. You're going to be able to take a hit because of your heavy armor, and you're going to be able to dish it out with some rockets, be able to stun something. So if you are coming across some AA, that AA has seconds to be able to actually get a shot off on that target before it is then stunned, or possibly not in a position to be able to shoot back at it with those Russian helicopter rushes. So very important that when it comes to AA, and specifically SHORAD for the US, that there is something that is able to quickly engage Russian helicopters when they're rushing up on them. Otherwise, when they're rushing up on them, because it's pretty deadly, and that's going to also be its own video in the future. They need to add the ability to transport teammates' infantry and vehicles with your own. I have yet to see that in a multiplayer RTS like this. None of the war games you're able to do that. That would be very interesting. It's possible that they're not doing it for balance reasons. I am going to go ahead and ask the devs about that and see what they think about it. From Bjorn the Fell-Handed over there on yesterday's video. Caleb King, the Striker MGS, has the old Abrams gun. I'm pretty sure it's a 105 M68 on the MGS, off the early Abrams models and M60 patents. I believe so as well. I think that is the old Abrams gun, which is why I called it the smaller Abrams gun. Sometimes I'm just trying to abbreviate some things, but also sometimes I forget some stuff. So thank you very much there, Caleb, for mentioning that. So now we know it's the 105 from the old Abrams. It's not just the smaller Abrams. So good to be particular about that one. From the Modern Viking, hopefully the EU and China is added eventually. I hope so as well. Both obviously have some very interesting units, and like I mentioned earlier, hidden in the tutorial there, we got some German units. We have some, I believe, Polish, correct me if I'm wrong, it might be like Czech or something like that, units that are around, and we've already seen Leopard 2s and things like that. So I believe it was part of the original plan to have other nations in, like what they did with Wargame, but the backlog became too extensive, and they did the right thing, which is lower or shrink down the scope of the game to be able to launch with what they can effectively before they go and step out of line too much with trying to do too much at once. So starting with the US and Russia here, and based off of the stream that we had the other day where they were streaming the tutorial and what you're seeing in the background right now, it sounds like what they're going to do is they're going to make it so that they're going to consider these factions. So even though we're playing as the United States and Russia, and there might be a mention of a nation somewhere, these are considered factions with blue and red. So if they end up adding a nation, they could just do it one at a time in terms of the specs like they are doing right now, where the first time that we see the UK, for instance, it could be a UK airborne, and we got para, we got third para and all that stuff, or it could be China, and we've got some kind of mechanized or naval, whatever, marine or whatever for China, or even an airborne for China first as a spec, and then you can do a Russian armored China airborne, or or on the other side there, a American armored UK airborne kind of thing, and that would be a really interesting way of setting that stuff up. So we'll see what they end up doing, but that's the way that was explained in the stream the other day. So they're going to keep the specs available, and they're going to call them factions instead of nations to be able to do something like that. But probably significantly down the line, we have yet to even see the specs for the nations that we have, as well as potentially some other stuff that we might see for these nations. So going to have to wait for launch for that one, and they're still on pace for June, so we'll see what's going on with that. Chijuk, don't want to get in trouble with mispronouncing some of these, whatever that is. Could be saying something in another language, something that I didn't think about, so be careful on that one. APKWS is a laser-guided Hydra rocket. It will definitely be ground-to-ground with laser guidance capability. APKWS have already been in the game on helicopters and airplanes in beta. Yep, that's a thing. However, when you put it on SHORAD, it's also a thing that can engage aerial targets. Something I didn't think of is if I would need a Google or something like that, but we actually already covered that topic earlier. Who was it? It was... It was Random American who brought that up, so he did a little bit of the groundwork on that one, and it can engage aerial targets. There's some airburst capabilities or something like that for that stuff, so it's possible. But what could also be done is probably engage ground targets like what we can with the Derivitsias and things like that. So there's going to be 30mm cannons on there and these APKWS, so maybe if you put it up there with the Rush with the other strikers and you run into a random infantry squad or something like that, then you put the cannon and put the APKWS on there, and no more infantry squad. Strikers, let's fucking go. From MacDie, 9070. I fought GWAT, so Global War on Terror, in one of the first striker units that existed. I think that's in 1,000,000. 1,000,000% would ride again. I've waited a long time to see a game company do the striker right and feature it in their game. I'm so happy right now. That would be really interesting to get your take on the way that it is implemented in the game. I feel like it's not going to be one-to-one. Almost never is this stuff one-to-one in terms of its uses and stuff like that. But hey, if they got all the units correct, make sure you make that point there, MacDie. And if you're not in the Discord, go join that Broken Arrow Discord, because they actually take that stuff pretty seriously. If they're missing something, they go ahead and add it. For anybody that doesn't know, this happened now several months ago when they first introduced the AIM-174, which is that super long-range missile, the air-to-air missile that we get with the Super Hornet. It was like a week tops before we're just like, hey, this exists. Can you guys add it to the game? And they'll be like, good, we'll check it out. And then they're like, okay. And then next test, it was in the game. It was over several months. It took them a little while, but generally speaking, when stuff like that pops up, it's pretty easy to fix, and they're on top of it. They want this stuff to be, relatively realistic. Dum Binks. Those are AGM-88s on the F-16 CJ. It's just the angle prevents us from seeing the midsection fins. I wonder if they'll have slightly better stealth than the normal C, since they have RAM coatings. Also a minor nitpick, but they should rename it to the F-16CM, since CJ refers to the 1990s version. They do some weird balance things on stuff like that, and as I was just talking about, they like to correct that stuff. So that's definitely a discussion for somebody that set up that spec, and whether it be the mods or the devs themselves over in that Discord. I don't know what you're talking about. As far as I'm concerned, all I knew, and this is from the Wargamer Dragon days, was that the F-16 Wild Weasel was a seed plane. That's all I got. That's all I know about. So definitely go jump on the Discord on that one. But if it does have some better seed missiles, I'm not complaining. As long as you put some ECM on there, I don't really care what you call it. You got to be able to shoot that stuff at the S300s and stuff like that in the back. We're good to go. But Dum Binks, thanks for the heads up on that one. Sector at 130, Motostrelki equals motorized infantry. It's mechanized / motorized riflemen. Yeah, that's definitely the stuff that I'm going to get wrong all the time. So apparently when I was calling the Motostrelki, which makes complete sense now that I'm actually saying the words, Motostrelki is motorized infantry. In my brain, in my wargame brain, I see Motostrelki as BMP-2s and then motorized as wheeled vehicles. So whatever they end up calling it, the Motostrelki that we saw in a trailer already, which we'll discuss in its own separate video, when we talk about like Russian units and the specs that we haven't seen yet, even though we have a trailer for the Motostrelki already, is what clicks for me is Motostrelki equal BMP-2 stuff and tanks, while motorized, whatever they end up calling it, which is why I got confused with the guards motorized, is wheels. So that's BTRs and things like that. So we'll see what ends up happening, what they actually end up calling the other one. But Motostrelki is what we've seen already. That's BMP2s, some other tanks, a lot of tracked stuff, BMP3s, things like that. Gonna have its own video. And then the, whatever they end up calling it, motorized deck, the Wargame fans would understand that one is going to be like a lot of wheeled vehicles. We'll see what they end up doing that. It's probably going to be pretty mirrored to the Striker deck, I would imagine, for balance reasons. So we'll see what happens with that one. But Sector 9450, thanks for the heads up on that one. I don't think the T-15 will get any significant nerfs. These devs seem to know what they want to do, and I'm glad they're not just turning this game into Warno, because DC is full of Warno players complaining it's not like Warno. But I can imagine that they perhaps would adjust the pricing or availability, but not touching the vehicle itself. From, oh boy, dude, Inco's, bro, you know who you are. From yesterday. I don't know. If any of you guys go see that name, you're going to see it's whatever this is. Inco. We're just going to call it Inco's. I don't know if you're fully correct there. I agree with you. I want that to be the case. But they already went and did this change, which if you guys didn't see the video before yesterday, I mentioned some other changes that they've made, and maybe I got to do a recap of this stuff. But they went and made it so that SAM missiles, SAM units, no longer, when engaging airplanes, get cover from trees. So I still have yet to figure out the best way of explaining this. But if you put a SAM unit in a tree line, they can see airplanes, and they can engage airplanes as if they are not in a tree line. Because, verbatim, this is exactly what they used as the excuse, new players kept screwing it up. So because new players didn't know that if you put something in a tree line, they're not going to be able to see anything, and then they were no longer able to engage airplanes, they then removed that. So there's definitely some lines that they've crossed in terms of keeping it easy for new players and things like that. And because there's so many new players that have no idea how to handle the T-15, even though it is arguably one of the easiest to handle vehicles in the game. Not kidding there. And if that deserves its own video, I think it's going to get its own video too, because I have an idea of a video mentioning hero units is what I'm going to call it. I don't think it's anything crazy. I think plenty of people would consider that those kinds of units hero units. Basically, the TLDR is there that you pick a spec because you want to use a specific unit because that unit is strong. Every single spec needs those units, and because it's on the ground, there's very few units that can engage with it, and because it's so useful at, what's the right word? It's very strong in terms of countering the things that are used to counter heavy armor. It makes it a strong unit. But if you're playing against it and you don't know how to properly counter it, then you're playing rock, paper, scissors without the paper. Mavericks take them out. Correctly using Abrams take them out. Just because there's a T-15 in a town doesn't mean that you need to push 3 Abrams in a town to go kill the T-15. No, you go somewhere else with your Abrams. There's so many little aspects about gameplay in this that the devs are not going to change. I've talked to them plenty about this side of things. Just because somebody puts T-15 in a town doesn't mean that I guess we need to push our Abrams into the town. No, you need to figure out another way to get them out of that town, or push somewhere else, take another point, and let them get out into the open. Get them when they try and surround them, or try and get angles on them so that if they move out to you, which they're eventually going to try to do at some point, because you can just push those tanks over to into the point, you get them caught in the open, and then you kill them there. Another thing would be try and figure out recon, get eyes on them, Mavericks, they're dead. That's another thing. So lots of different ways to counter it, but people just need to know. So people are playing rock, paper, scissors without the paper. We just need to tell them what the paper is on that end of things. That was not your question at all, but I did answer it earlier, and we went on a little bit of a tangent there, but hey, there we go. It doesn't make any sense for me. Motorized guards and are Motostrelki in the translation. Okay, so Den Solo, already covered that with somebody earlier, Sectoro. Yeah, so there's going to be a motorized because correction. Sorry, there is going to be a mechanized Motostrelki. They've already done the trailer for that. There is going to be a mechanized spec because they're mechanized that are called the Motostrelki. So that's the thing. All I saw was BTRs, and that's what I connect to motorized, as I mentioned before. So we'll see what they end up calling the other one. Maybe it's probably not going to be called guards motorized since that's what Motostrelki is. So already covered that one. We're good to go there. Those harm might be the newer Argum. So I checked out the Argums, and those have like longer fins on the side, which we definitely would have seen. So it's probably going back to what Dun Dun Bing said earlier, which they probably are just a newer or a version of the harm that we just can't see the fins, that's probably the case. So I don't think they're Argum. I'll ask the devs if they plan on adding Argum, and to be honest, if they do, it's probably going to be in the Spec Ops spec because those things are pretty new and they're pretty cool. So pretty good too. So those seaplanes. So thanks. What's his Thingo from yesterday's video. And then we got Neural 539. Those seeds on that plane are the ones that have longer range. Again, so I think he's thinking it's the Argum. I doubt it's the Argum because we would have seen the longer fins along the side. Again, I think those are just like a newer harm of some type. So we'll see what that ends up looking like. But thank you guys for engaging with that because I didn't know. So thank you. No Spec Ops for the Ivans. I was hoping they would mix it up with Cheap Militants and Frankenstein MTLBs. We already have those Frankenstein MTLBs. That was actually from the Marine. Is it the Marine deck that gets those? Somebody can correct me on that one. And we'll even have a comment section of our own on this one. I think it's the Marine deck that gets those Frankenstein MTLBs with the cannons and things like that. Maybe those aren't MTLBs. I could be wrong. But we do have some crazier little Frankenstein stuff going on with the specs that we have already for Russia, and I imagine there's going to be more. If you guys haven't seen the pics that we've already seen for those specs, and especially the motorized, there's definitely some pretty crazy stuff going on there. So Schweinhund 3497, yeah, check out that check out the Patreon because they'll have some pictures up there on some crazier stuff. So are the Rangers in the Special Forces deck? I presume so. One of the things that I saw with the tutorial, and what you guys probably already saw too, if you saw their streams the other day, or anybody else's gameplay of the tutorial, is they do have Rangers in Strikers in the tutorial, but that doesn't mean that they can't just add Strikers to that Special Forces deck, because Rangers are considered Special Forces, and they made no mention of them in the dev diary for the Strikers yesterday, even though I'm pretty sure there's like a striker brigade that like those are like like they call them strikers, and those are Rangers and Strikers. So maybe that's a thing that's in the Special Forces deck. I don't know. There's a little bit of things that they're missing here and there in terms of mentioning in that dev diary, including the A10, by the way. And there were a couple of vehicles that they missed. There's basically like a gun truck that has a bunch of metal on it, but it has like 50 cals and stuff on it. So that's a thing as one of the transports. And then there's also an M117, I think it's called. It's a wheeled, just armored vehicle, nothing too crazy, that they missed it as well. That's in there for the Striker Brigade. So there's a couple of things that they missed. It looks like the Rangers are not in there, though, because the Rangers seem pretty significant. So I feel like they definitely would have had a section for the Rangers if they were in there. So probably going to be SF on that side of things. And that SF deck, it being Special Forces, is going to be very infantry heavy, so it makes sense. So we'll see what's going on with that one. I do not know. Somi man? Sorry to mispronounce your name there if I did. Somebody spoke in Spanish. Can I translate from here? I can't. I see operators con drones FPV though. so we'll see what's going on with that. As far as I know, they're not going to be adding FPV drones into this game. There's plenty of other weapon systems that are similar. Then we don't need to worry about logistics and the troubles of the real world that FPV drones really slot in for in terms of cheapness and things like that, even though they are super effective and super, like, obviously good, even on their own without having to worry about logistics and things like that. I can understand why people will want them in the game. I believe they're not, because why not just use a Javelin? It's with the way that this gameplay works, why not just use a Javelin or an ATGM in that situation? Or artillery. So, yeah, Saya Cavs. Sorry again if I'm mispronouncing that name there. New free beta release, nothing yet. Death Trooper, nothing yet. We will see. Well, it says or release. They're on par. Apparently, they're on pace to release in June still. So let's see what's going on with that. Surin Pass. What about 10v10? And actually, it looks like Emeritost responded here as well with the correct answer. They are not doing 10v10s. So no 10v10s. The most that and this is what the devs said, the most that the servers can handle and the most that the engine can handle right now are 5v5s. And then in private matches, you can set up 1v1s, 2v2s, 3v3s, and 4v4s as well as, of course, 5v5s. But no 6v6, 7, 8, 9, 10s, 20s, nothing like that. So 5v5 is the most that we're going to be able to get. And then we come down to the question that brought up the gameplay in the background that you guys have seen, and I'm going over the amount of time it took me to beat that, so probably going to see some other stuff in the background, maybe some other clips from some other gameplay. But from Cedar, did you get access to the recent demo? If so, could you please upload some videos of the gameplay? And Ducky Sparta, however you pronounce it, sorry there. said that they agree. I said I did get access. It's the exact same as what you saw the people post and stream. Got some something interesting from it though. We'll post at some point. That is the EU units and the German units and things like that I saw from the tutorial, and we'll talk about that in a different video. Cedar mentions I'm his favorite Broken Arrow streamer and that I play very similar to him, but he doesn't get the results, or that I actually get results. This is going to be a topic that is going to come up repeatedly. I play very differently than a lot of people out there. What I have noticed is the vast majority of the people that post gameplay for Broken Arrow, they're either doing it from a fun perspective, and when I say this, absolutely nothing wrong with this. You guys do what you want to do. I personally have fun kind of min-maxing this stuff and armchair generaling it kind of a thing. So I have my perspective on it. Others have their perspective on it. If that is what they want to do, they're very welcome to do that, and I hope that they find success doing that. I hope it's fun for them doing the way that they want to do it. So, but me in particular, the reason why I'm pushing what I'm pushing is because the vast majority of you guys, especially if you're new to the game, are not going to be playing in team stacks, and even if you do, you're not going to know how to do it properly. You're not going to know how to communicate, all that stuff. So I'm coming from a perspective of, if you play solo, what can you do as a solo player? If you can't communicate, how do you play? If you are new to communicating, how do you play? That is going to be my direction. And, you know, min-maxing and things like that, that's going to be what I specifically point out on, which is why I keep it all separate. And it's also why I play the way that I play, because I'm making the most of my situation as a solo player, playing with who knows who on my team, doing who knows what, basically. So that's the reason why I do what I do. If I play in a team stack, you'll see some team stack gameplay at some point, because I got a bunch of buddies that play. But this was gameplay in the background there. This is what Cedar wanted to see, and it looks like a few other people wanted to see. It was almost quite literally just like driving down the road for me. This is stuff that I would do in any gameplay, and you've probably seen me do exactly this at least several times, where you just put the Abrams up there, have something that can see a little bit further, and once you get close enough, you light them up, and if you get too close, you can get some RPGs coming at you, so you got to watch out for that. But the APS can soak up a little bit of mistakes here and there, and so can the smoke. But pay attention to now that ATGMs will find a new target, so you actually kind of have to wait until they're right on top of you to smoke, so then it will miss, and then it won't engage something else. That's something. And then also, if you go down a road, I didn't do that in this case. I might have done it a little bit here, or I used 1 or 2 units to cover other units with their smoke. But generally speaking, if you're going up against players who have a proper defense setup, you're going to want to go in a column, so one after the other in terms of vehicles, so that you can smoke the vehicle in front. Once it runs out of smoke, you replace it with the vehicle behind it. You push that one to the back, so that you're not going to need to worry about it, but it can also help with fire support. And then once you get close enough to actually spot units, then you put it out in a line so that you can get all guns on the target. That's going to be the new system when it comes to fighting ATGMs and things, and a properly like dug in and defended enemy. And we got 7 Tucker here. For the A10, they'll probably just pack it full of chaff flares, so it'll be more survivable that way until it runs out. LOL. Probably going to have over 100 ammo for that though. I would imagine it's going to be several hundred. I think it's going to be, isn't it like 400 rounds? So those of you guys that are listening that might know, isn't it like 400 or 500 rounds that you get? Might even be like 600 that you get for that loadout for the A10 in terms of the cannon, but for the gal there up front. But what I'm really thinking about here are the rockets and the Mavericks. So specifically with the strikers, with the F-16, and again with the A-10, even though they didn't mention it in the dev diary, those two, depending on the availability, I could see you having 6 of those. So you can get 36 potential Mavericks if each of them, if each of the airframes have the 6 Mavericks. And to keep them a little bit cheaper, maybe you don't go full, maybe you go higher ECM pods. I would imagine you could put ECM pods, and you have a bunch of flares on the A-10 because it's going to be slow, but it's also going to be able to take a hit. So maybe even the A-10 will do it itself, especially with the GAU, to do enough to stun. But it should take 2 Mavericks to be able to take out any hardened Russian vehicle in the game. If they take a punch, you get a little bit unlucky on the RNG side of things, it could take up to 3. But when you see these heavy pushes, it's really only a handful of units. It's half a dozen or so at most is going to be. I mean, my full deck of T-15s is 6. That's what you can run into, or that's what you can have. But that is with the previous specs. So with the Motostrelki or something like that, you could get more points for that tab and then be able to bring more. But still, one airframe potentially able to take out half or potentially even your full hero units for your push is pretty significant to at least morale, and it's going to make you want to pull back. It's, oh, there goes my T-15s or my T-14s or my BVMs or my T-90s, or hell, if it's a mirror match, there goes my Abrams, because if you get those side shots with those Mavericks, those are gone. And with the Striker Brigade there, you get a lot of Mavericks. You get a lot. Then last but not least, we got the Krilly pad here at the end saying comment for Alvarez. So really appreciate that again. This is not the main channel, so really appreciate all the support that I could possibly get. If you guys like these videos, if you liked any of my videos in the past and perhaps maybe forgot to comment or like or sub, really appreciate the support there. And especially when it comes to the comments, I'll read them off here. I'll try and do my best to get these videos up every once in a while. Maybe just put some gameplay in the background so it's you got something to watch. And we do have a bunch of gameplay coming up, but we also have a lot to talk about as we lead up to the next spec that we're going to be seeing next month. So we've got 4 weeks here until we see what I presume is going to be that Special Forces deck, where I, again, presume we're going to see the Raptor, the B-2, the Nighthawk, those stealth helicopters, the Rangers, Delta Force, Navy SEALs, Green Beret, all that stuff. We'll see what that ends up looking like in about a month, and we'll try and do as much Broken Arrow gameplay in between now and then as we can. Otherwise, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you for being here. Thank you guys, all of you that commented. Hit all the buttons on the screen to support what I do. Otherwise, hope you have a nice time. Thank you guys.
Adjusting on target.